Okay, so welcome everybody, and happy Cesar Chavez Day, of course. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started with today's discussion, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items real quickly. First off, I'd like to remind you all, if you've not already done so, to complete the survey that I sent out earlier this week. The last question is an information release that will essentially allow me to share a contact directory with the cohort that many of you have been requesting. So the quicker we can get that finished, the quicker I can get that contact directory out to everybody and post it on Wigio. Secondly, I'd like to thank all those who attended the HIP conference in Gala last week. It was a very highly successful event and a great way for some of you to meet face-to-face and kind of connect on the awesome work that you're all doing. So stay tuned, as I will be posting some great photos from it on Wigio shortly. So we can kind of look through those. And finally, before we start today's discussion, I just wanted to go over some quick instructions on how to participate in this kind of webinar interactive discussion. So if you want to draw your attention to the GoToWebinar control panel located on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a short strip of buttons to the left of that main panel. If you can locate the icon depicting a hand with an upward green arrow, this is the button that you'll want to press if you'd like to speak. So I'll be monitoring essentially the attendees, and it'll indicate to me that I should unmute you, and then if you want to either ask or respond to a question or make a comment. Alternatively, you can also type a question or comment into the text box located in the control panel under the little subheader entitled Questions. So with so many of us on here, these two functions will essentially allow us to stay organized without talking over one another. So with that said, let me thank Toti Caravid again for joining us today. I believe she has been monitoring the Wigio chat board over the last couple of weeks, and I think wants to begin by addressing some of those questions. So Toti, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Michael, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Well, I am so happy to be here today. I have been traveling, just came back from Europe yesterday. So I got a chance to take a look at questions that you guys have been putting in Wigio. And I want to just address well, some or at least all of the ones that I saw before we open it up. Will that be okay? I'm going to assume Michael is nodding, so I'm going to go ahead. Gigi Pedraza was wondering if the framework that or the process that I have been using was developed by our company or is part of a larger framework of leadership. So Gigi, thanks for that question. This is a framework that I designed after studying more than 10 different frameworks and evaluating what works for my clients. So really, this is a labor of love, and it's been taking years actually to develop it because I wanted to make sure that it drives results, and I see this driving amazing results over and over and over with my private clients. So really, my whole intention with this is to help people find what's inside and what are the issues that are hidden and keeping them from being better leaders. I work my one-on-ones is mainly with executive leaders of Latinos, some not, but it is about being the biggest and more effective leader that person can be. So this is how this was developed and used, and it's been successful over the years. Okay, I saw another question by Joshua. He mentioned that he was disappointed that we didn't not seeing more Latinx leaders being mentioned. And instead, I mean, we did have people of color like Oprah and the founder of Wrapup, but no Latinos. So Joshua, great observation. We do have many very successful Latinos, and in many industries, we have leaders. The issue here, Joshua, is that I have not found Latinx examples of successful Latino CEOs whose success is also known to be driven by authentic leadership. So there are many Latinos and many successful ones out there. For example, here in Colorado, we have 3 probably many more, but three that come to mind really quickly are Linda Alvarado, Federico Peña, Ken Salazar. And although they are extremely well known and have accomplished amazing things, they are known for their achievements and their incredible accomplishments, but they're not known or seen as standard bearers of self-awareness or of authenticity and purpose, which is really what the research has shown to be the key to unleash a different and more effective type of leadership. So I'm not saying that they're just not known for not being so. Okay, I'm gonna go to a question by John Garcia. He was saying that he would like to discuss some more case studies concerning nonprofit or philanthropic leaders, including leaders of color. And that's a very good point. I will continue to look for examples of leaders of color that truly exemplify this concept. The examples we used were actually of CEOs. I was not going into the philanthropic area because I was trying to get to those who have both, the financial side of the business responsibilities and multinational in many cases as well. But it's a great point. I love to see some discussion actually in Wiglio. You guys are all in either foundations, government, or nonprofits, and fantastic leaders. And I would like to see how we can use the concepts that you learned in the first webinar to open up the discussion of leaders who exemplify those, what we saw, the characteristics and the skills and all of what we saw about authentic leaders. That will be extremely interesting to see. So please jump in and give us examples and tell us why you believe that they are authentic leaders. We have many to be very proud of. So let's all of us get to know them. Now, just remember that culture and heritage helps us define who we are, and it is up to us to be authentic with who we are. So recognizing that it might be easier for others to be authentic in a high-level environment, we will be discussing how to leverage our heritage in the next webinar. So that will be a very important and interesting topic that we will be discussing next. Okay, John Garcia also had another comment, and he said that he wanted to see if we could discuss a more managerial aspect of leadership at some point. And I would love to have the opportunity to have a longer time to be able to discuss that. We in fact do quite a bit of work with our clients on how to leverage purpose and authenticity in strategic planning and marketing in organizational leadership, and that is a fascinating subject to all of us and very, very important here at Youthful Field. So I hope that maybe in the future we have more time to discuss, to have a third webinar, and in which we can discuss this. And I will leave it up to our partners at HIP to let us know and indicate if that could be something we can discuss and open it up to everybody. All right, Gigi Pedraza also was just the comment that she realized that she was struggling with how to understand the framework, that it was shared in a vacuum and not in relation with our community or our role in it. And Gigi, good point. We will get actually to that in the next webinar, because the next one is about how, as Latino leaders, how are we to best influence and exert our leadership. This webinar was about how to become a better and more effective leader. And as you all know, it starts with you. And so that's what we developed so much time in explaining that concept to all of you, as well as gave you all the homework for you to start in that search, that journey that I am certain will take you to become even a better leader than you already are. Now, let's see, the next one was from Ariana Cisneros. And she wanted to address the realities of structural and institutional racism that prevent people of color, particularly Latinx, from taking on more leadership roles. It's well known in the philanthropy industry that Latinx are severely underrepresented in all aspects of the sector, especially in management and director and at the board level. That is a great point, Ariana. As I mentioned earlier, we will get to discuss cultural and heritage issues in our next session. I do want to point out again that self-awareness and authenticity, as well as purpose, are all colorblind. So we choose to be authentic or not. We choose to have a purpose or none, but that has nothing to do with us being Latin or not. So we need to make sure that we keep that point very clear. We authentic leaders, colorblind. And Gigi Pedraza also had another question. She wanted to see in the framework, she wanted to point out that it's very important that we are a fit where we want to go. And she wants to see leadership in a vacuum. I want to explore what corporate leaders say about themselves only. We're missing an important opportunity to learn from leaders creating and driving social change. So all great subjects, Gigi. We purposely kept this webinar very focused on the personal aspect of leadership, which is self-awareness, authenticity, purpose, as opposed to the application of these very same concepts to corporations or nonprofits. We work with our clients on those aspects. And really, I love to share that alignment between organizational purpose, strategy, employee engagement, and customer experience really is the key for organizations to keep moving forward at levels that they will never have been able to do otherwise. So alignment, organizational alignment is key. So perhaps that can be yet another session that we can tackle in the webinar series. And that's another subject that I love talking about and helping the clients implement because it is key. Now, I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you who are commenting the positive comments and the questions. Keep doing that. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what's in your mind and how are you developing in the process. And with this, Michael, let's open it up for some questions from the people attending today, or perhaps questions that you got previously via email.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Duffy, for addressing all the questions that appeared on Wigio over the past couple of weeks. So with that, I have a couple in line. So let me first open it up to Ariana Cisneros. She has a question, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Ariana. So please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so I guess I'm just curious, and I'm sorry I joined like 5 minutes late, but I'm curious as to what are we going to discuss during the session today? Because right now, while I appreciate that you acknowledged our questions, are we not going to dive deeply into? We're not going to have a deep discussion because I actually, especially in my comment that I made, I understand what you're saying about leadership being colorblind and being authentic being colorblind, but I don't feel like it does me any good to be authentic in a workplace where I'm not allowed to be authentic. So I feel like unless we're going to have that discussion, I'm not sure what we're talking about today.
So today's Q&A is regarding any topic or any part of what we discussed during the first webinar, and any questions or any issues that you have run into as you have been doing your homework. So we're open for anything, and we can have a deep discussion on any of that.
Okay, because
Now,
I want to have
the next webinar, Adriana, the next webinar is about Latinos, how we as Latinos and leaders can influence more. So perhaps, I don't know if the questions that you have in mind is for the next one, but if it is on anything that we discussed on the first webinar, please go ahead.
I mean, I guess I could wait if you feel that that's where we can talk about it, but I guess I'm struggling with it because I can say that I'm not, I guess I'm disappointed in your response to the issue that I brought up because I feel like it diminished the point that I was trying to make.
Well, no, not the intention at all. It's just that Latino and leadership is going to be spoken in the next webinar, so I'm trying to keep into the topics that were discussed in the first one, but not diminishing at all. On the contrary, that would be a very important topic to discuss next. I just don't want to jump the job.
Okay, I mean,
Okay.
I guess I'll put the floor to another question, but I guess I'll just raise it that I feel like I prefer to have a deeper discussion about the different topics and points that were raised.
Okay. So let me go ahead and now move to Meli Torres, who also had a question. So Meli, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Hi, how are you? So I'm kind of following up, feeling similarly to Adriana, was it? Because I feel that, you know, our being authentic selves is integrated so deeply with the intersectionality of our identities as Latino, you know, Puerto Rican, or however you identify. And so I find it kind of problematic that we're gonna kind of take these like issues separately, or not issues, but you know, like I feel like, yeah, it's important to kind of think about like me being on my authentic self, and that it's really integrated with my identity as a Puerto Rican woman. And so I don't see it as like, oh, okay, then next week we're going to talk about you being Latino, and that's separate from you being authentic and being, you know, this authentic self. You know, I just kind of listened to the first webinar, and I kind of felt like it was very I just kind of felt like, being that this program is very much focused on Latino professionals, either who are in philanthropy or not, or kind of like on our path to that, it was not really culturally responsive in that sense. I felt like it was sort of, you know, kind of more mainstream, you know, like I was just like, okay, so this is interesting. Here's the Whole Foods CEO. Yeah, you know, it was something that I could get in just kind of like a more like non-Latino centric space. And so I was a little disappointed not to have that. And so, you know, like I would love to kind of have the opportunity for us to not have to wait a whole, like, okay, so the next webinar, I don't know when that is, but then we have to still wait another 2 weeks to have these discussions, because then I feel that, you know, we're just kind of like waiting around. You know, and so like, how do we facilitate, you know, these discussions so that we could have a little bit more kind of immediate discussions, you know, and I know we have the platform, the online platform, but, you know, this is great that we have 10 people, like, let's dig in now. And I don't know if that's possible. So that's my concern.
Thanks. Sure. Well, the platform is actually there for anybody to start any discussion in whatever subject that you want.
Right.
And it is actually encouraged that you do so, because then everybody can jump in with their opinion on whatever subject that pertains to being Latino and being in leadership. And know when we are finding ourselves, so when we talk about being authentic, of course, being Latino is part of who we identify with being. And that I imagine, and I hope that in the answers of what you are following through the homework that is coming out in the answers that you are finding for yourself. Now, the question is, are we waiting to have, or the question to wait? Do we have to wait to discuss being Latino and being a leader? So no, we don't have to wait. You can put that on the platform. But what we want to make sure is that you understand how important it is for you to look at yourself, not just identify with being Latino, but you, who are you? Even within a whole country full of Latinos from different countries of origin, or at least parents, grandparents, or, at some generation, we all came from different countries. There are many things that we have that are similar and many things that we have that are different. We are people with personalities, first of all. So our background plays a very important role, but who we are as the person that we are also is part of who we show up, how we show up as a leader to the team that we are leading, or to the people we're trying to influence, to the people that we work for. So this first part is helping you identify who you are, because unless you do know that, discussing being Latino in leadership will not be as effective if you don't know who you are. I hope that was helpful for Adriana. Nelly.
Did you want to respond, or shall I move on?
You can move on. Yeah.
Okay, so next I'm going to move to Priscilla Lopez, who also had a question. So Priscilla, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Priscilla, are you there? Priscilla, if you can't speak into the microphone, then you can go ahead and type the question, and I can verbalize that for the group. So just let me know. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, I think she's typing right now. So let me go ahead and read that. In the meantime, does anybody else have a question? And for those of you who joined late, just to let you know, it's the little icon with the hand and the green arrow pointing up that will indicate to me that you have a question. So if you do so, please raise your hand, or alternatively, you can type your question into the question text box under the subheader questions in the control panel. Okay, Priscilla, yep, go ahead, please. Priscilla, you are unmuted, so you can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, it looks like she's having some audio difficulties, so I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute. So should we open it back up to Melly or Adriana or Adriana? I know you had a question earlier. Adriana, did you want to say anything regarding to the comment you made earlier?
Sure. Thank you. I just pointed out as you were speaking, Toti, that, given the day, it would be important maybe to flag, as you mentioned, some of the other leaders that are representative of heart-centered, authentic leadership. And so I think, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta would be representative, two examples. I think, I'm still trying to formulate my question because, what some of the other folks have said does resonate with me. I mean, I was thinking about as I was doing the exercises, well, what happens if, certain aspects of who I am as a person and as a leader are not affirmed and are not held up in sort of the norm of what is leadership, right? I mean, I think that is the challenge. I think that, the lady spoke really eloquently to that. So I guess maybe it in addition to just like having that conversation, it could be important for us to be presented with some tools to, navigate that reality and that dynamic. I think maybe it could be useful to do some case studies, right? To bring some leaders to the table and sort of think through, where do these folks resonate, where maybe they don't, how does this, stack up to my own skill sets and my own purpose and mission? I think that could be helpful. At least for me and potentially for others in the group. So I appreciate, though, I will say I do appreciate the opportunity to take the step back and have reflection. I tend to work 60 hours a week, right? So sitting down and putting the work and the time into the exercises that you presented was actually kind of revolutionary for me and helpful and for me to kind of identify some things that I, had been simmering, but that I hadn't really out louded and I hadn't really voiced. So, I do appreciate this time and this last session as well.
Thank you, Ariana. That's a wonderful point. I really, finding our own voice is so important. Because we can never be a very effective leader unless we know who we are and all that we can bring to the table. We are, of course, Latinos, but that's not the only thing that we bring. We bring so many, and now we have to be extremely proud to just bring up our Latino heritage and what being Latino actually brings to the table, right? What we present and what we represent and how much more we can help, especially when we're leading in the U.S. and helping other leaders and colleagues deal with all types of different nationalities and groups. But so I appreciate your comment, and I would love to I keep into mind as I develop the second seminar to just make sure that we have in there some tools to help all of you navigate the reality of being Latinos in places where we may be the one and only or the very few, right? And it's hard. It's always hard to be the different one. I understand that. I've been in many places of leadership, which is I'm grateful for, but I've been in many places the only one or one of the few, and I know how hard it is. And that is, I take that from being in either in corporate America at the work level or in boards of directors. So great point. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Lionel Salcedo, and then after that, I think Priscilla solved her audio problems. So Lionel, let me go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead. Lionel, are you there? Okay, well, he doesn't have phone access. So he also typed his question. So I'll just go ahead and ask it. So, hi, thank you, Ms. Cadavid, for taking the time to do this. First and foremost, I appreciate that you shared your personal experiences and explaining how to be our authentic selves. What do we do if you're going through the steps and we get stuck? Specifically, what many of my fellow participants have echoed. How can we use our Latino identity to achieve our most authentic selves?
Lionel, thank you for the question. So part of who we are is being that. Michael?
Yes.
Okay, so part of who we are is being Latino. So as you answer the questions that have been part of the homework, make sure that you are identifying just everything that is Latino about you in them, because it's who you are. But make sure that you are also seeing yourself through the lens of your personality, your core, your soul, what's in you. When you sit at any table, you are that person who happens to be Latino. So just make sure that you include that. And also to think how being Latino is going to help you achieve your goals, and it's going to help you show up differently and whole in front of others who are not.
Okay, thank you, Toti. Let's go ahead and move now to Priscilla. And Priscilla, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay, good. Sorry about that. First, Toti, I wanted to thank you so much for bringing up, to start this. I echo, I think, some of the feelings that were being expressed in the beginning of feeling like, didn't really know where it was going. But I think I sort of sat and I thought with the idea of being authentic, and I think that it's a really valuable place to start. I think that many times as being Latino or being a person of color in workspaces can feel like a hindrance. And I think that by starting at this place of, who are you at the core, transcending the obstacles, transcending the identity of who you think you are, where does that take you next? And I think that that's a really powerful place to empower us at, because I think that, working in a global, workforce now where, you do interact with lots of different people from different places, it's important to truly know who you are at the core of, aside from being a woman maybe, or aside from being Latina or Black, what are your values and your mission as a personal statement? And I still don't know what that is yet. The questions and the worksheets that you distributed were very in depth, and I didn't get through them because I was a little intimidated. I didn't know how to start. I think it's a really deep dive. And that being said, I'm going to try and do it this weekend. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that, just acknowledge the fact that, we are so much more than just Latino. And I think in order to be successful leaders, we need to have a global identity beyond just our Latino-ness so that we can work better together with other people. So at the end of it, that's where our strength, at least for me, I'm like, that's where my strength is, right? Is I have a multicultural background, and that's what my strength is walking into the room. Is I already know how to build bridges because I built bridges with my identity every day. But I think there's much more to your identity than just where you are, where your parents came from, and your obstacles. I think that formulates it, but I think there's a spirit behind that. There is very deep core values that many of us never really get to. So I appreciate you starting this conversation there. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Priscilla. I think, well, first of all, I am going to encourage you to continue, do not be afraid to continue to dive deep, because that is exactly what I want each of you guys to do, is to dive deep. I know for certain, I promise you that the more that you know yourself, the better leader you're going to become. And yes, absolutely, being Latino is part of the equation. And so is being a parent, and being Black, or being yellow, or being, like many people in Peru who are Asian, a lot of Asian in their blood. So we are such complex individuals, not just because of the color and our heritage, but also for what were the circumstances in which I was born. and what has made me the person that I have come to become today. And all of that is really a sum of all the experiences and a sum of all the environments in which you have lived. So yes, it is much more complicated than just being Latino, being a mother, being a marketer, being a philanthropist, or being whatever each of us is. It is the sum of, and that really, I so appreciate that you are seeing that is really the point of this whole exercise, is to begin understanding what is the sum of all, what are the parts that makes us who we are, because at different points in leadership and in different places, we need to make sure that we can bring one of those cards out. Not just the Latino card, but who are we as people, as individuals, as the experience that you bring that is different from everybody else in that room because of what you lived in your life. So wonderful. I really want to get a little email or a note when you finish your homework. I just want to know that you did it.
Yes, I will. Thank you. That's
wonderful. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let me go ahead, and I see that Laura Gomez has a question. But before I get to you, Laura, let me just go to Lionel, and you are unmuted now. Lionel, are you there? Okay, so she might still be having audio problems, but she just wanted to thank you, Toti, for addressing her question. And she says, I will attempt to infuse my identity in her activities. So again, thank you very much. So at this point, exactly. So let's go ahead and move on to Laura. I'm going to unmute you. You are now have the floor.
Thank you, Michael. Well, Toti, thank you very much for sharing your story when you did your presentation. I myself have had some similar experiences where life has kind of given me a warning sign of where to go and where I need to change. And so I really appreciate you sharing that story because it did resonate with me in my path that I'm continuously on. And in terms of the homework, I'm thankful that the questions that are there to guide us to really delve deep. I personally have had some of these questions, and some of my other mentors whom I've had in my career have challenged me with some of these questions, but I think at the time I just never really thought about them. You know, I thought about them, but I just didn't really take it into effect as to how those questions would be used as guiding principles to where I wanted to go next in my career. But one of the things that you pointed out that's very important for me that I've taken reflection on is timing. I think that there's a perfect place and a time for everyone, and where just kind of all the stars align. And my challenge, I think, for me, and while I'm doing this exercise, I think is, you know, once I analyze and examine myself, you know, how do I start? Yeah, I create my plan, right, of what I'm going to do next, right, and what tools I need to get me there. But how do I think, overcome that timidness to make that jump? And so how did you do that?
Okay, great question. So when we make plans, and usually we can even see these at the organizational level, right? We have a huge plan and we don't even know where to start. So same happens when it is your own leadership plan. It's your own plan of what is it that you need to learn, what is it that you want to go, and how you're going to get there. My suggestion, start small and reward yourself for every step that you take forward. So the important thing is to have a clear end where you want to get, and where you start is exactly where you are. If it is by learning some skills so that you can become a better leader, do so. If it is about understanding how you are showing up to others, because that is so important, how you show up to others. And how can you find out? Well, by actually asking other people that work with you, people who are your friends and family. How are you showing up? It is key in leadership. Well, then find out. So so just make your plan and start at the very basic level. No step is small enough. As long as you're moving forward, take any step in the right direction.
Thank you.
I hope that was helpful, Laura.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we have a few more minutes here on the call still. So let me again just open up the floor and ask if anybody has any final thoughts or any lingering questions. And for any of you who might have joined us recently, you can either type your question in the question subheader on the control panel, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the icon that has the hand and the green up pointed arrow.
And Michael, I understand that you also have some questions that you received ahead of time?
Yeah, I do actually. So let me go ahead and ask one of those while we wait for anybody else who might want to speak. So you said authentic leaders are always confident. What if they're just acting confident? Does that mean that they're not being their authentic selves?
I'm laughing with this question because yes, we do see, this is the problem. Sometimes we believe that at certain positions, we are supposed to be acting in a particular way when we get to or achieve a certain position. And so we look up to whoever was in those shoes before us, to that position that we really wanted. And we say, okay, well, I guess when we get there, we're supposed to act in this particular way or ways. And that is the moment that we become unauthentic. So what we need to do is make sure that we understand what's the difference between the responsibility of a certain position versus how we as our own authentic leader and self could act given the level of responsibility that comes with a new promotion or new position.
Thank you, Duffy. That was really helpful. So with that said, it looks like we're pretty much at our time limit of 45 minutes. Let me just go ahead and thank you all for joining us today. And know that we will reconnoiter April 12th, which is a Wednesday, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And that'll be our second webinar, again with Duffy, which is entitled Raising Latino Voice and Leadership. And we look forward to having a really good webinar, and then followed by April 17th, which will be the Q&A session for that webinar. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you again, Duffy. Any last parting words for the group for today's call?
Absolutely. I thank everybody for being so open and so authentic and truthful with your questions and opinions. And I want to have more of these as you know, in the chat in Wiglio. I want to make sure that everybody knows how grateful we are for you when you intervene, when you put questions, and when everybody else is also supporting the thread of answers. So please dive deep, do your homework, ask any questions. I am here to help in any way that I can, and so is the team at HIP. Thanks, everybody.
Perfect. So we'll see you next on April 12th. And in the meantime, please go to the Wiglio board and, you know, voice any opinions and questions and facilitate some good discussion there. And I'm sure Duffy will be moderating those as well. So look forward to speaking with you next. And until then, have a good weekend. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.